Okay, so first I'll address your question about letting her kind of pick her starting spot. Um, we did a VIP webinar on start lines, and for dogs that tend to paddle their feet, we do something similar where we tell them to sit and then wait until they basically set their feet. And then we lead out. And so that we kind of give them, exactly like you said, a little bit of room to set themselves. But once they set themselves, then we expect them not to move. So I kind of view your situation very similarly. I also think, I mean, the for a large percentage of agility people, we don't have any sort of formal obedience background, so there's kind of no such thing as a sit or a down like exactly by our side. And so I think that it's totally okay as long as your dog is responding to the cue and then holds it, that it's not in some perfect position. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to you. You define that criteria. So if your criteria is you have to be right by my, the seam of my pants leg, your shoulder by the seam of my pants leg, then he's not meeting criteria. But if your criteria is, and it can be different in agility and in obedience, if your criteria is when I tell you to down, you down comfortably wherever you are, or you move towards me and down, or whatever it is your criteria is, and then from that moment on you don't move. And so I see right here a very, very solid starting down. You can see the dog kind of leaning, but not lifting the elbows off of the ground. And so I would, if it were me, my criteria would be something along the lines of once you get into the down, your elbows don't come up until released. So anyway, that's probably more time than I need to spend saying I think it's okay what you're doing there. I don't think it's going to break things as long as you don't let it then push into further and further and further behaviors. All right, so here's the forced front. You said you gave him more room to help with the bar and the dog walk. I think that's fine, but I also think that you could move a lot earlier. At this height, your dog is going to land almost past the plane of this jump. So this side is where the dog is going to go. It's going to be very difficult for your dog to do this. That would require a lot more handling. So I think here you can already start moving in this direction, I think, because by the time the dog lands and starts to turn, they're going on this jump. Because this does put you further behind, and that's why you get the head check. Your dog is going to drift a little bit towards you, and there's a nice juicy jump here as well. And so I think that's why you get just the hair, a hair of hesitation there on your dog's part. This is beautiful, beautiful rear cross here of the tunnel. And then here, I pretty much agreed with all of your assessment. Here I think that you're kind of just mashing together a whole bunch of cues, and they kind of all conflict. So you're turning towards your dog. You're starting that rotation, but your feet are going in this way. As your dog gets further ahead of you, the motion in this direction is more salient to the dog. They notice it more because they're using the peripheral vision than any sort of rotation. So, all of this motion in this direction really continues to support that jump. And if you still need to support that jump, then just don't worry about the turn yet. I think if it were me, I would really be sprinting from here. This sprint that you're doing here, I would continue that sprint all the way until my dog needed to know to start putting in that extra stride. So I would sprint a lot further and then really slam on the brakes. And what you'll find is that this you have a very gradual slowdown, a beginning of a turn, just a lot of mushy cues that are going into each other. And you'll find that this sprint into a stop is so jarring, so distinctive that your dog will respond better. And so you just have to, then the thing that you have to find is at what point do you have to give that strong decel cue for your dog to respond to it, but also to not pull off the jump. When are they committed versus when do they need the information? And you figure that out through practice, but I think that would give you a better turn there and be more clear. So here we have late front cross. Here's step 1, step 2, and then you do these backwards steps and ending up S-ing around your body. Your dog is pretty heroic to get that. So I think here you've got to trust the A-frame more so that you can get into position. I'm just looking at what she said. Yeah, you know that it was late, but it was late because you were staying right here by your dog for the end of the A-frame. So you've got to get away from that. And if not, a rear cross could be, let me see what comes next. Yeah, I guess a rear cross might create too much of a turn going to that tire. And if you're not as comfortable with the tire, then I can see why you want to get on this side. But you can't have it always. You can't baby this and baby the tire over there. You kind of have to pick one or the other, or recognize that you're going to get this bad cue in the middle here while you basically force the course to put you on this side where you want to be. Beautiful backside blind there. Nice rear cross here. Okay, so this is when you thought you're a little bit late, and I agree. And one of the things that I like to look at, before I even look at you, I look at the dog. And you can see that the dog at this point is headed in this direction. They're hugging this wing. That means at this moment, the dog probably thought that they were going straight or turning this way. You start putting pressure, your dog's going to turn in midair, but you can see that still your dog is on this half of the jump. If the dog read the rear really nicely, they would have prepared to turn ahead of time, and they would be taking this jump already turning in this direction. Head turn in this direction, but your dog's head is still pointed forward. So to me, the dog is telling you it was too late, and now if I look at you, there's not too much space between these two jumps. The dog is heading for the jump. He's really preparing to jump now, which means he's preparing to jump like this, and now I think the pressure comes. We can't quite see the moment because the judge is there, but you can see that pressure comes late. And so when the dog has to change which direction they're turning and they're already in the air, a lot of times that is going to cause the bar. I think especially with a larger dog, at this point your dog is probably pretty strongly committed to this jump, and you can already start this pressure on the line before that point. Now looking at the end, I definitely am not a fan of running a big outside line. It puts a lot of pressure on the dog, especially a large dog that's relatively fast. You are able to make it, but I would not have been surprised to see this bar come down. I'm not sure why you really didn't like the rear cross here. I think the rear cross is probably, if you can't leave the weave poles so that you can come in here for the front, I think the rear cross is a really nice option. You just come over to this wing and you just wait very patiently for the dog to kind of wrap this wing, get the dog on the line here, put pressure on the line to create this turn. So your dog responds really nicely there to everything you did, but I do think it is a somewhat dangerous move that doesn't really help the dog know where to go. At this point, I just don't see, as your dog is taking this jump, that they can really be prepared to go here. I think that your dog saves you by basically being able to hit the ground and really dig in and head for this jump and respond. But I don't think that he could know coming into the jump that that's what was about to happen. So we want to give them a little bit more time to make those decisions.